This is the story about the Britannia Mine. This old mine and town is located about an hour's drive north of Vancouver, British Columbia. The story begins in 1898 when prospector Alexander Forbes staked claims on Britannia Mountain after tracing a promising green stain of copper on the rocks. Soon after, Oliver Furey and Reverend Thomas Dingle also made claims in the rugged terrain. In 1899, British investors formed the Britannia Copper Syndicate of British Columbia Limited, hoping to develop the find. But with no roads, no port facilities, and only mule trails over the mountains, the syndicate struggled to make progress. In 1904, the failing syndicate sold to the Howe Sound Company of New York. To manage the project, Howe Sound incorporated the Britannia Mining and Smelting Company Limited in British Columbia. This marked the beginning of 7 decades of large-scale mining. The company built a town at Britannia Beach, complete with houses, a school, a hospital, stores, and even recreation halls. Because the ore was high in the mountains, a second camp, Mount Shear, was also constructed near the underground workings. Workers and their families lived in these isolated communities, accessible only by boat until the highway was built in the 1950s. Over the years, Britannia developed massive infrastructure, aerial tramways, hydroelectric plants, and several concentrator mills. The most iconic was Mill No. 3, built in 1923, a 20-story gravity-fed concentrator that still dominates the shoreline. At its peak in the 1920s and 1930s, Britannia was one of the world's leading copper producers. In total, between 1905 and 1974, the mine produced over 50 million tons of ore, yielding copper, zinc, silver, gold, and other metals. Underground, miners carved out more than 130 miles of tunnels through Britannia Mountain. Life at Britannia was not without tragedy. In 1915, a devastating rockslide crashed down on Britannia Beach, destroying homes and killing at least 56 people, including many children. The isolated location meant rescue efforts were slow and traumatic. The mine also suffered from fires. In 1921, a fire ripped through one of the concentrators, halting production until it was rebuilt. Other blazes over the decades destroyed housing and infrastructure, underscoring the precarious nature of a wooden company town. Disease also struck. During the 1918 influenza pandemic, dozens of workers and family members at Britannia perished as the remote camp was unable to access medical help quickly. Labor relations were often tense. Being a company town, the employer controlled housing, wages, and even the general store. Strikes erupted over working conditions, wages, and safety concerns. One notable strike occurred in the 1930s during the Depression, when miners demanded better pay and union recognition. One of Britannia's constant enemies was water. The mine's workings cut deep into Britannia Mountain, and groundwater poured in continuously. Massive pumps had to run around the clock to keep levels dry. When equipment failed, flooding sometimes forced miners to abandon lower sections of the mine until pumping was restored. After the 1921 concentrator fire, water buildup inside the tunnels caused further delays to production. By the 1950s, rich ore bodies were declining, and production costs were rising. In 1963, the mine was sold to the Anaconda Copper Mining Company, a Montana-based giant. Anaconda modernized operations but could not reverse the trend. On November 1, 1974, after nearly 70 years of continuous operation, the Britannia Mine closed its portals for good. From Alexander Forbes's first prospect in 1898 to its closure in 1974, Britannia produced 650,000 tons of copper, which is about 1.3 billion pounds. It also produced 137,000 tons of zinc, 5.8 million ounces of silver, and 225,000 ounces of gold, along with some lead and cadmium. You can still go to the old town of Britannia today, as the mine has been turned into a museum that you can tour. As mentioned earlier, it's only about an hour's drive north of Vancouver. Well, folks, that about wraps up this week's video. If you enjoyed this story of a coastal British Columbia mine, you just might want to watch this video about Antioch, BC. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.